Hi YouTube, it's Kathy and this is Taylor.
Hello.
And we've decided to do an episode of Come Drink With Me based around OKCupid questions and how ridiculous they are. First, booze. What are you drinking, Taylor?
I'm drinking a Hopping Mad Cider Radler. It has apple cider and grapefruit juice. It is from Central City Brewery. I don't know
Surrey.
where. Oh, from Surrey.
There
Okay.
it is.
All right.
Sweet, so a BC beer. I'm also drinking a BC beer, Fuggles and Warlock, the last strawberry wit. Ooh.
And I'm going to have a sip of it because that sounds good. It just occurred to me that I brushed my teeth about 5 minutes ago.
So it probably tastes really bad.
Yeah, it didn't taste good. It tasted like a grade 5 science experiment.
We should also mention it's only 11 o'clock in the morning
It
because I have to film this early so I can edit it and upload it before I go on my trip tomorrow. So, is your Radler less Arm & Hammery?
It tastes like it tastes good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hope it's good by the end of the can.
Oh, it'll be great. It'll be fine.
Taylor picked the topic for this Come Drink With Me because I told him he could.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to give some of the background on why you chose this topic?
Online dating. It's I feel like thanks to social media and apps like Tinder and Grindr, like the term like swipe left, swipe right is like it's in the cultural lexicon now. So I feel like the stigma of online dating is not really there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it's possible now to have a conversation about it without really having to address the stigma, even though we're having a conversation about addressing the stigma, so we're still kind of addressing the stigma.
Yeah.
But I feel like in 2016 it's sort of a thing that you can just talk about without it being weird.
Yeah.
I thought of OKCupid specifically because it's the site I've most often used because Plenty of Fish sucks. And a lot of the questions are really bad. And there's like two kinds of bad OKCupid questions. Mm-hmm. One is like it's horrible and problematic, and there are answers to it that are just gross, but you're kind of glad it's there because you want to weed out
The people that will say yes to questions that they should definitely be saying no to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're shitty OKCupid questions, but you're kind of glad they're there because it separates the wheat from the chaff, as it were. And then there's like the questions that are like, why is this a question? The whole framing of this question is wrong. The person who came up with this question obviously has really weird politics or a simplistic and reductive approach to human relationships. I picked 30, so there's, an OKCupid Battle Royale. That's a little pro wrestling reference for the people who are subscribers to your channels and fans of pro wrestling. So
there is at least one person who subscribes to my channel who also likes pro wrestling.
You're welcome, one person.
You're welcome, Lex. Alright, I will read the first one here.
Okay.
Would the world be a better place if people with low IQs were not allowed to reproduce?
So this question is in the why is this even a question category. I can't help but think that the person who wrote this question would answer yes to it.
Yeah.
It just seems to come from that sort of kind of Ayn Randian perspective of the world.
Yeah.
And it's like let's take this question in good faith. Let's say it comes from a place of like really wanting, the world to be a better place and wanting people to be smart and to have a society that's very intelligent and worldly and yada yada yada. So imagine a society where like you can't reproduce unless you pass an IQ test. Do you really think that society is going to be, like, really free and nice and utopian in like, every other way?
No, I do not.
Is the legal structure of that society, like, how much religious freedom is going to be in that society?
Yeah, very
How
low.
much is freedom of speech and freedom of expression actually going to be a thing in that society? What kind of disability supports is that society going to have? Probably none.
Yeah, no, because if they're suddenly like, oh, people with low IQs are no longer allowed to reproduce, well, the next on their list is going to be people with any form of genetic flaw, aka disability.
Exactly. Well, like in Nazi Germany, like when Hitler first came to power, like and then yes, in the Holocaust, obviously 6 million Jewish people were killed. They went after disabled people first. It was called Action T4, and there was a bunch of propaganda leading up to it where they were, they would have, a poster with like a person using a wheelchair, and be like, your husband or whatever, their income is going to this person, and they're leeching off of society. Which incidentally, a lot of rhetoric is coming out of the conservative movement in the UK and other parts of Europe now. So we're getting back to that in some ways. And so Action T4 had these trucks would show up at the houses where like disabled people lived, and where like disabled children of parents lived, and they'd get taken away in these vans and they would be euthanized, and 250,000 people were killed. And that was essentially the test run for the Holocaust. It was part of the Holocaust. So like this question is totally ignorant of parts of history like that. And also it's of a perspective where disability is seen as something that even could be eradicated. Like if you take a look at something like autism spectrum, that's always been around. It's just in the 1970s that it's been like really started to actually be diagnosed.
Yeah.
And it's still underdiagnosed for women. It's underdiagnosed for people of color, because the stereotypical image of an autistic person is like a white boy who's fascinated by magic cards or whatever. Like any other disability, it's a natural neurological variant within our species, not some aberration. Like if you somehow manage to exterminate, like I have Charge syndrome, if you manage to exterminate everybody with Charge syndrome right now, it wouldn't change the fact that just the way our species has evolved, 1 in every 10 to 15,000 births is going to have Charge syndrome.
Yeah.
Like you can't, it's and now I'm just talking about the practicalities of it, besides the fact that it's just inherently offensive and fucked up and should not even be a question. Incidentally, there actually is an Ayn Rand dating site.
Oh, Jesus, I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
I'm sure there, yeah.
Yeah, there actually is an Ayn Rand dating site, so we can do our next Come Drink With Me about that.
Oh, God. In a certain light, couldn't being homeless be exciting?
So, I mean, I'm speaking from a place of privilege and even saying that I've almost been homeless. Like, I would have been if I hadn't had a network of supportive friends. Even just having been close to homelessness. Like, even just having been in a position of, I moved into a new place in Vancouver, and when I looked at it, it seemed fine, but with the previous tenant's furniture all taken out of the bedroom that I was to move into, all the corners were, like, black with mold. So I had to, obviously not spend a single night in there, and I effed off to Victoria, where I live now, and this was 3 years ago, to stay with some friends. And if I hadn't had that support network, I would have been on the street. Now, having, that support network and camping out in houses, like, that was kind of fun, and that was kind of exciting, because it wasn't in an alley somewhere, or under a bridge somewhere. Like, homeless people, in Victoria face tons of discrimination if you're talking about tent city.
God, yeah.
There is, if you go to, like, Together Against Poverty Society and just sit in the waiting room, you're going to find somebody who comes in just about every day to talk about, police brutality that they've faced as a homeless person. So, with this question, like, take your white bread Victoria privilege and fuck off.
Are you currently employed?
All right, so the last one, in a certain light, couldn't homelessness be exciting? I would say that's in the why is this even a question group. Are you currently employed? This is a legit question. I mean, it kind of sucks that it is one, but I'm glad it's there to weed out people who are classist. I mean, I can understand if you've been raised to be monogamous and, maybe you yourself have a marginalized identity of some kind, and it's important to you that any partner that you have some sort of income.
Yeah.
Like I can understand that, like, okay, that's fine. Mm-hmm. But, like, at the same time, this economy sucks. The vast majority of new jobs being created in Canada are minimum wage. The true unemployment rate in Canada is something like 25%. Because, like, the way they calculate the unemployment rate, if you are unemployed and not currently looking for work, mm-hmm. you don't count. in unemployment statistics. So I don't, because I'm not currently looking for work, because have PWD designation, and so, fuck that. When I'm on OKCupid and, I'm looking at this question, I would say over 90% of the time when I'm looking at a profile, my answer of no will be unacceptable.
Yeah.
To the other person. And it kind of sucks. And it's one of those things where, like, I don't want to be the type of person who's like, oh, you don't want to date me, you must be shallow.
Yeah.
And yet, I wonder how many platonic friends that person has who are unemployed.
Yeah.
It's like if somebody, it's like, okay, you just don't want to date disabled people because it's a personal preference. Okay, you just don't want to date people of color because it's a personal preference. Okay, you just don't want to date trans people because it's a personal preference. Well, personal preferences don't exist outside of prevailing social biases,
Yeah.
And again, like, okay, the person who says that, how many platonic friends do they have in that marginalized group? Usually none. So I bring some of my own shit to not liking this question. I know, it kind of sucks, but it's a legit question. I can see why it's there. And I mean, it would be, again, like as a person in a marginalized group, it's nice if a partner has some income, obviously. So I can understand it on that level.
Do you consider taxes a form of theft? I just want you to tell them what your explanation to the actual question was when you filled it out.
Oh yeah, when I filled it out, my explained answer was, I consider disability benefits a form of not having to starve. There are things that I pay taxes for, even though, I mean, I don't pay income tax, obviously, because I don't make enough, but, like, an 8-year-old kid going to the store to buy candy pays tax on that candy. Like, anybody who, like, purchases goods and services is a taxpayer.
Yep.
So the whole notion of a taxpayer being, like, a wealthy landowner, fuck that. There are some things that we pay taxes for, like oil subsidies, like corporate subsidies and stuff like that, that, I don't love. Or, paying taxes for, policing where there are, racial disparities and who gets arrested for, like, drug crimes. There are things I don't like that I have to pay taxes for, but join the fucking club. Like, it's being a member of society. There are going to be things that tax money goes to that you don't necessarily agree with. Like, but overall, broadly speaking, taxes are a moral good.
Yeah.
Without taxes, you don't have supports for the elderly, you don't have supports for disabled people, you don't have mental health supports.
Not to mention things like infrastructure, roads, schools, all that type of thing.
Totally.
Like those are necessary for society.
I was driving through this area of Vancouver with a friend of mine who lived around there, sort of around, like, Taunton Avenue, near Joyce SkyTrain station. And there were these street lamps, it was like in the evening, and there were these street lamps that seemed to be somewhat randomly placed. And what my friend who was driving told me was that the city paid to have those street lamps put there because that was a popular place where sex workers would go with their clients. And having the street lamps there would keep them safe. And rates of assault of sex workers went down when they put the lights there. And that's because we pay taxes for things.
Okay, well, thank you for drinking with me, Taylor, for
welcome.
many episodes. It seems like at this point it seems like there will probably be at least 3 if not more episodes of this, so that's wonderful. If you're seeing this ending, that means that we're not done yet, so look for the next episode next time. Down in the comments below, let us know what you thought about the questions that we answered in this episode, or even the questions that we talked about in this episode, and what your thoughts on them would be on the way down to the comment section. If you hit that subscribe button, that's always a really nice thing to do. You can like and share this as you see fit, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye, Internet.